Welcome. Our opening anthem, Highland Cathedral, by the Band of Scots Guards, was selected by Alister's family to honor his heritage, because we all know that Alister was a proud Scotsman. We gather here today as family and friends to support each other with our love and understanding as we mourn the loss of Alister Muirhead. We are also joined by those on live streaming who I know send their good thoughts and prayers to you in this time of need. And I think, Sarah, you said that your husband and your 3 children have got all their tuxedos and ties and everything dressed up to the nines watching. So if you see me looking, that's where they're on the camera right there. So there are no words to describe what you're feeling at this time, and no comfort that can be given to take away the pain of losing a loved one. Each of our pain is different, so we must allow each other to grieve in our own way. During this time of reflection, don't be afraid to laugh and don't be afraid to cry. This is a safe place for all of us to grieve and honor Alister's memory. Let us pray. O God, creator of all life, help us to accept death as a part of life, trusting in your goodness and great love for every one of us. We feel now the pain of parting with Alister, but we rejoice that so many were privileged to experience life with him. We entrust Alister to you in death, as in life you entrusted him to us. We pray in sincerity and in hope. Amen. Our opening prayer asks us to accept death as a part of life. And since God gave Alister to us in life, to experience and enjoy life with him, we can be grateful for that. We unfortunately now have to entrust Alister to God in death. But we can take comfort in knowing that the Creator will be there to look after Alister. And we have faith that he will be guided through this life to the next, and he will come to be reunited with all the loved ones that have gone before him. Please say your own prayers and goodbyes for Alister as we listen to a song that the family selected from one of Alister's favorite artists, Don Henley, as he sings Taking You Home. And as you center your thoughts and prayers on Alister, listen to the words of the song, which speak of being reunited with a loved one, and think of Alister as he makes his way to his heavenly home. The opening lines of that song make us ponder Alister's own life. I had a good life. I had my friends and my freedom. I had my home. Still, there was sorrow and emptiness. We know that Alister had a good life, and he had a family and friends that he could depend on. And like all of us, there were times of sorrow and emptiness. But through it all, Alister made an impact on people. And we have faith that he has been taken home. So when you think of Alister, what are your thoughts? What will you remember most about him? And what did you love most about him? Will you remember Alister's love of his family? His amazing sense of humor? Sarcasm? His career? His interest in history? How he was an avid reader? How he became an Amazon junkie? Or will you remember what a great storyteller he was? No matter how you remember him, we know that he definitely lived up to one of his nicknames, Big Al. Not just because of his size, but because of who he was and how he inspired others. And we can take comfort in looking back on Alister's life and celebrating all that made him special to us. A life that started on a Saturday near the beginning of April 1961 via Newhart Hill, Scotland. And I probably said that wrong, and I apologize. Alister was a bit of a character growing up, doing a little bit of drinking and getting into fights. One story the kids remember was him sharing with them was how his friends and him would go down the street and pop the doors on vehicles, hotwire them, and then move them around the streets and everything, just to mess with people. Alister's sisters will always remember their childhood and adult memories of Alister's fabulous dry sense of humor. Now, after Alister left school in his mid-teenage years, he went to look for work. And of course, he decided to tread on over to where his dad worked, the steelworks. And even though he was told, "There's no job for you," Alister kept going back to the office and badgering the HR rep until he got a job there. Now, Alister kept working at the steelworks and until his job became redundant. So then, at about the age of 18, Alister joined the police. Alister mentioned a couple of his stories that happened to him when policing. Once, he and his partner were responding to a shop break-in at the liquor store, and they were able to apprehend one suspect. But one suspect got away. Well, that didn't stop Alister. He was persistent. He kept walking around and looking around and searching, came across a bunch of mannequins, shining his light all through it, shining his light on one particular mannequin, and then all of a sudden the mannequin moved and said, "Okay, you got me," and scared the crap right out of Alister. He said he jumped out of his skin. At another break-in, after catching a couple guys stealing copper, one of the suspects said to Alister, "You couldn't have come 10 hours ago?" Because they had just spent 11 hours trying to get all the copper they could, and now they had nothing to show for their illegal activity. After about 3 or 4 years in the police, Alister moved on to the TA, the Territorial Army, and true to his nature of being a character, he continued to collect dole money. Now, some of us know that as employment insurance or POGI. So he kept collecting it while with the TA. Just after someone turned Alister in to the authorities about collecting the dole money and working, he enlisted in the army. And that was in his mid-20s. In 1980, Alister started a family with Debbie, welcoming Jillian, Sarah, and Lewis into their lives. And his family became used to Alister being away for months on end as he was being deployed and he went on exercises with the army. Even though he was away, Alister always kept in touch with his family through letters, calls, video calls, and ensuring that they knew that they were important to him. Alister spent time in Iraq, Afghanistan, Northern Ireland, Cyprus, And in 1995, Alister was posted to Pattison, and he brought his family over for the 2-year deployment. They lived right across the street from Judy's family, and they became friends, and because their children were about the same age. After returning to his homeland, Alister even made a few more trips back to Pattison on medman exercises. When Alister and his family were posted here in the 1990s, that's when he learned how to play hockey, and he played with the Oilers team on the base. He got pretty good, too. He went on to many Blue Jays games here in the Hat with the farm team, and he became an avid Toronto Blue Jays fan. Alister was a great teacher and mentor to the younger soldiers, and many of them reached out to the family to say how much he really meant to them. Alister was always willing to help others, even if it meant helping out a soldier who had lost a set of dog tags and making another duplicate set for them so they wouldn't get in trouble with the officers. He would even lend his lighter out from time to time, especially when Prince Harry asked you to borrow it, you hand it over. And he did meet Prince Harry while he was stationed here in Canada. And he said he always lent his lighter out and never gave it to Prince Harry. That way Prince Harry would keep coming back to borrow it. And there was one occasion when Prince Harry's ride was running late, so Alister said, "Sure, I'll give you a ride." And he gave Prince Harry a ride in the Big Bonnyville, also known as the Silver Bullet. And after that, when somebody suggested they should wash the mud from the floorboards on that side, there was no way that Alister was going to let anybody wash the mud that was on the floor mats that came from Prince Harry. And I'm not completely sure how or why the two of them made a wager with each other, but when Alister lost the bet, he paid his debt to Prince Harry right away. And we know that Alister's mischievous side did come out from time to time while he was in the army, like when he slipped a Viagra into a drink of a not-so-popular officer's drink, just before the officer had to get up and make a presentation in front of a room full of other officers and soldiers. That sounds like Alister. Alister made many friends in the military, and his family would like to thank all of you for your friendship over the years, especially Pat McCulley, who was like a brother to Alister. Apparently they got into trouble quite a bit, and Pat said Alister was always the big gentle guy who always had a clear head. In 2009, Alister retired from the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers as a sergeant, and he had been a Class 1 armorer. Now, Alister had struck up a relationship with Judy, kept in touch with letters and cards. They had a mutual love of music, like Rod Stewart, and both of them had seen him in concert, separately. However, while they were together, they decided to hit some concerts together, and that's included the Eagles twice. They got to see Garth Brooks twice, Roxette, Glass Tiger, Bryan Adams, Shania Twain, Cher, Bon Jovi, Cher, Elton John, and I know we're missing probably a few others. They also went camping, usually at Cypress Hills, and they spent other spots they went to in southern Alberta and other locations. And camping meant real camping. That meant it had to be in a tent, which Judy was not completely comfortable with. And in fact, when they heard something outside the tent that sounded like a meowing sound or some type of cat sound writing on stone, I think she got a little bit nervous when she found out it was a bobcat. Well, that's okay. When they headed out on the open road, of course, Alister had one of his favorite spots that he liked to stop at. But I'm not going to tell you about that. I'm going to turn the podium over to his children, who have come just a few miles to get here from Scotland, to give you a little bit more insight into their dad.
So, I'd like to share some memories of my dad with you all. So some of my first and most treasured memories are of him reading me stories before bed. I knew them all by heart, but God help my dad if he ever tried to skip a page or two when he thought I was asleep. I noticed every time. As I grew old enough to read my own stories, I began to borrow books from my dad's collection and subsequently was introduced to Stephen King far, far too young. It gave us something to talk about, though, as we shared our pet cemetery-induced trauma. This eventually evolved into a love of literature that I still carry with me today, and I'll always be grateful to him for igniting that spark in me. I loved his sense of humor and playfulness. I remember our trip to Disneyland in 1997. We flew first class, and we got the fancy reclining seats with the built-in TVs and the trays that folded out from the armrest. Oh, we must have annoyed the hell out of everybody else around us, playing seat goes up, seat goes down, feet go up, feet go down. We did that for about 6 hours. 25 years later, right up to the last time I spoke to him, we were still referencing that game every time we reclined a seat, an easy chair, or even a hospital bed. So I had the best take your kid to work day. So where my peers were off visiting office buildings, I got to climb all over tanks and help my dad dismantle a 120 millimeter gun for inspection. I cannot remember exactly how it came about, but on the way back from a school dance in Detmold, I was maybe 14, I somehow ended up agreeing to babysit for one of the mothers who wanted to go out and party late into the night. She ended up staying out until 4 a.m. And the longer she was out, the more I called my dad in frustration because I had an event to provide first aid cover for with St. John Ambulance the next day. I remember getting home at ass o'clock in the morning to find my dad was still up and he was cooking me a full fry-up for breakfast before I got what sleep I could. He was so thoughtful and generous with his time. I remember thinking that he was magic. So there was a long stretch of road in, I believe, Osnabrück, where he would occasionally, like while he was driving me, he would let go of the steering wheel and the car would appear to drive itself. So I know now that it was just the friction of the road surface acting on the tires and making the wheel move, but at 5 years old, I was absolutely enchanted. I never felt safer than when I was a child, cuddling up to him on the couch with my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. And I don't think I ever will again. I'm gonna miss you something awful, Dad. Thank you.
As Alister's son, you'll be thinking I have some really big shoes to fill, but my dad found a way to help me out and start me off easily by giving me his big feet and his large ears. They're perfect when it comes to doing inspections and work around my building. When I'm working in my building doing inspections, I might need to have a pen handy, and it's very nice to know I can have my pen in my ear the way he used to. If I need a pen handy when I'm doing it, it's nice to know I always have a pen locked and loaded in my ear. This very one, in fact, that I got out of his jacket he used to wear. My dad always had a good spirit of making people laugh. He always had a good way of doing it. I will always laugh with him, and I know he will always be laughing at me from above when I'm trying to buy shoes in a shop. Because he knows it's really hard to try and find ones to fit my big feet he gave me. But I know that in his way, it was of making me know that he is still with me and that I'll never forget him because of it. If I ever need a reminder of him, I can just look down. I guess in his mind, it was smarter to give his son the ability and the equipment to go anywhere without getting stuck. This gave me the freedom to go on my artistic adventures as a kid. I know I'm a big lad now, but Dad gave me his knowledge and mindset, so even though my dad is gone, he will never be gone from me. I have the strength he had to let me lift the heavy things that others might need help with. I love helping with his incredible spirit. I keep it always. Dad taught me to try and stay happy and see the funny and less sad side to things, and his impressive ability to keep a cool head no matter the situation or circumstances, which is why I always managed to get through college and job interviews with no problem, while other people were freaking out around me. You may know my dad as a teacher, a mentor, or a Class 1 armourer, the highest and most prestigious level there was, but to me and my sisters, that's still not high enough. He was to us a Class 1 dad that gave us the discipline and the real-life abilities we needed to be the best that we could be. He was the best of the best when you needed him. The one true thing my dad did for us was to make sure that we never felt alone. He was always someone you could call on when you needed him most. We all know the phrase, "What would Jesus do?" But for me, when I'm stuck, I always think back to what would Big Al do. However, now that I've been to his house, I found out that what Big Al would do is go shopping on Amazon or hoard lots of juice in his room. Just think I've started doing it myself, actually. When Gillian and I arrived back at Dad's house, it was heartbreaking to walk around all the things that he'd collected, knowing he was never going to use them again. But he still found a way to give us all a laugh when Sarah introduced us to his treasure room of an unbelievable shit ton of non-alcoholic beer, noodles, boxes, and Amazon purchases, along with 4 tons of cologne and enough watches to fill a jewelry shop. And I thought I'd bad was 2. You will always be with me, Dad, as I can always think back to the times you brought me and my big sisters closer, even now. You made me feel less alone and as part of a family. I will always and never, I will never trade you for anything in the world. Thank you, Dad, for being mine. My big, strong role model. I can always hold my head up high, and my sisters can do the same. You were and always will be proud of us, and in turn we will always be proud of you. You were our father, our sergeant, our own personal Class 1 dad, steelworker, police officer, and mentor. Love you always, Dad. See you on the other side for more laughs, fun. Rest in peace, Dad.
So, Dad, this seems like an immeasurably cruel joke. 61 short years after you arrived in this world, it's far too soon to be saying goodbye. I don't think even your famous wit and humour could turn this one around. The crushing weight of losing you is felt by everyone, but especially to those closest and most important to you. Myself and your 2 other children, Gillian and Lewis. Our mum, Debbie. Your wife, Judy. Your stepdaughters, Casey and Kara. My husband and your favourite son-in-law, Ian. And finally, by who I think were your most proudest accomplishments in life, your 4 beautiful grandchildren, Kaylee, Leo, Maggie, and baby Alister. Life will forever be changed by your absence. Never again will I rush around the house getting everything sorted to be ready for our 8 p.m. Tuesday night calls. Never again will someone piss me off on the roads and I'll phone and rant to my dad. the one person who truly understood and even enjoyed my road rage. After all, he's the one I inherited it from. Who else will completely get it when I say that no one else knows how to drive? Because it was just you and me, Dad, the best 2 drivers in the world and the only 2 qualified to hold driving licenses. Who else will tolerate my drunk calls at 3 a.m. just because? Because no matter where each of us was in the world, we would always catch up and chat. You were always there for me. No matter how busy you were, you always made time for your kids and grandkids. And so many stories, comments, and messages echo those thoughts, Dad. Your brothers in arms tell so many tales of the mentor, the teacher, the advisor, and the friend that you were to so many. I'm sure you acquired many more colourful names from your time in the army, but those stories haven't quite emerged just yet. We'll give it time. I hope you now realise just how well liked and respected you were, Dad. Your stories will continue to be told, shared, and laughed with. Your legacy is as enormous as your size 13 boots. I will always and will continue to be proud to tell everyone that my funny accent comes from a result of growing up as a pad brat. My dad is a soldier. The impression and lasting effect you had on all those lucky enough to come across you will never be forgotten. Your sense of humour tends to be the first thing. Your sense of humour tends to be the first thing that everyone thinks of when they talk about Big Al. But you were also the bravest, kindest, caring, and most generous dad anyone could have ever asked for. The childhood you gave us was more than we could have ever hoped for, and we'll cherish those memories forever. Dad, you taught me to be the strong, independent woman I am today. You showed me what true love meant. You taught me to stand up for myself and take shit from no one. And those lessons will never leave me. Being lucky enough to find the love of my life, Ian, who supports and takes care of me, is thanks to you. You taught me to accept nothing less than the best, and I was lucky enough to find him. As I promised you in your final hours, Dad, you will never, ever be forgotten. The memories you gave me and my family in particular will span a lifetime. The holiday you and Judy took us on was the best of our lives, and I don't think it'll ever be beaten. Not that you ever could be beaten, hey Dad. Canada holds some of the happiest memories. I think fondly of listening to the awe and excitement in your voice when you finally got to show us your favourite place in the world, Frank Slide. I think of sitting in the water park, sun splitting the sky while we watch the kids laugh and play. I think of driving your silver bullet, your prized car. I'm going to skip right past the part where I broke the steering wheel when we were camping. I'm still sure that was somehow your fault. I think of our laughs, our jokes, movie nights and chess games, card games, adventures, long talks, quick catch-ups, and silly memes. There are few aspects of my life that you didn't have an influence on, Dad, and everything else I would spill out at our weekly or sometimes daily chats. Reminders of you are everywhere. Whenever I get a comment on my height, my reply has never changed. I get it from my dad. He's 6 foot stupid. When someone mispronounces or misspells my name, I'll quietly chuckle at my dad, who decided to remove the H and give me a lifetime of correcting people. I think of all the times I ran to you, from that little girl in the airport hangar, itching closer and closer to her daddy coming home from deployment, to the grown woman in Calgary airport, impatiently waiting for her lost dad to find her. Running into your strong, safe arms was my favourite place to be, and I'll never stop longing and waiting to run to you again. Kaylee, Leo, and Maggie were privileged enough to have spent time with their loving grandpa. Kaylee and Leo remember our holiday and their amazing grandpa fondly. Baby Alister, your little namesake, may have only had the chance to meet you over video chat. But again, as I promised you, he will know all about his brave hero grandpa. He'll hear all your stories, see your pictures and your legacy, and your name will live on through us all, forever. Grief is the price we pay for love, and the price we're paying is infinite. Even now, when our dad doesn't have our hands, he'll always have our back. We love you every day, and now we'll miss you for a lifetime. We'll never stop loving, missing, and longing for you, Dad. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Gillian, Sarah, and Lewis for those presentation and the tribute to your dad. As you've heard, Alister was there for his children, supporting them even when distance separated them. He wanted to make sure that he knew that he was emotionally there for them. Whether he was on deployment, exercise, or after moving to Canada, Alister kept in touch with his family. Alister was proud of his children and his grandchildren, and as Sarah mentioned, we have a couple tributes from a couple of those other people which couldn't be here today, and you'll see them up here on the screen.
Al. We first met in Donald's Rugland back in 2009. Just another one of the guys and part of a small Scottish contingent amongst all the European drivers and workers. We never spoke too much, but between yourself, Tam and I, during the nights, there was always a few giggles going on. I remember the first time I came to pick Sarah from the house for a night out. Your height, looks and bluntness made me fear you were going to give me the dad talk at gunpoint about taking your little girl out drinking. However, this was not the case. I genuinely think that you were relieved that it was me that came to pick her up and not one of the other guys from work. Soon afterwards, you left suddenly for Canada. Even though you were so far away, you've always been this figure in the background, a presence that was unseen. Sarah and I started going out exclusively when you'd only just left for Canada, and the whole narrative of the guy I'd met in Domino's changed from yin to yang. Sarah, Debbie, Gillian and Lewis were all upset you're leaving, which was a testament to the love for you. But during this time, stories and tales had been told to me throughout what had become an uncomfortable marriage and led to a very messy divorce. I'll admit, in the beginning, at that time, in the first few years, I didn't like you very much. I had to deal with all the pain that you'd caused, all the trauma when you left, and then obviously all the truths and stories that had been told since you left. Since then, however, my opinion has totally changed, and I love how you treated the kids and how you made time for Sarah every Tuesday. She always looked forward to your calls each week, always so thrilled when you called and grateful for the time you set aside for her and for only her. The holiday you gave us 3 years ago was beyond imagination. We all loved those 3 weeks, and we've been dreaming of doing it again and again, talking about it. How can we get the money? How can we get the time? We need to get back. Not only just to feed my addiction to cream soda, which I've got you to thank for, but to visit all the wonderful places that you took us, like Banff, up in the gondola, the hot springs, Frankslide, the water parks, just everything. It was a great time. We just wanted to visit and stay there that little bit longer. Even though you were so far away, the kids loved you so very much. Since your passing, they haven't stopped listening to the recorded books that you sent over for Christmas and cuddling the owls that you bought them from the sanctuary. I just want you to know that your picture will always have a place on our wall and in our hearts. Oh. Baby Alister will know who you are and what his name means. I want you to know you don't have to worry about Sarah. I've got her. I'll keep an eye on Gillian and Lewis too. Judy will still be my add-on buddy and the grandmother to the kids. We will be back to visit your adopted homeland someday soon. For now, sleep well, my friend. Drift away to your memories, friends, family, kids being born, Judy, Canada. I'm sure you're in some happy place. If we all close our eyes and just imagine we're back in that park in Medicine Hat. Sun's in the sky. Judy and Sarah sitting beside you, and the kids are playing in the water park, laughing, running around, and you could just sit there forever and ever. Sleep well, Grandpa. We'll miss you.
Grandpa, I wish I could give you a hug. Hey, Grandpa, I love you. I love you.
We thank you for sharing those special thoughts. Alister and Judy had been together for many years, and the family joked that when it came to proposing to her, Alister probably just casually asked, "Can you get me a beer, and do you want to marry me?" In fact, it was a fairly casual proposal, as he came up to Judy as she was working on the computer, got down on his knee, held out the ring, and asked her to marry her. They tied the knot on August 29th, 2020 in a quaint ceremony in a friend's yard in Redcliffe. That yard belonged to Bob and Scott, and I'd like to call Bob Gehring forward to share a short tribute to his friend.
What are you saying?
Not saying anything.
He's Scottish? Some of us know what that means. One of the camping trips we were on, I think it was one of the first ones that we shared. There was another couple there that didn't know us very well, and my husband and I were there. And this man came up to Alister and said, "They're married." And Alister, in complete surprise and shock, said, "They're gay?" So that's what that means. I looked it up. Alister is the Scottish version of the name Alexandros, which means defender, protector, man, warrior. What else is there to say, right? Alister. His father was Alister, a grandson Alister, and I think the Muirhead family will have a long line of protectors and defenders. I felt protected by Alister as well. He was a good, strong friend, and I know he would have fought for us like he would have fought for anyone else. When they got married in our yard, no offense, Judy, but we were in the house helping him get everything perfect and the kilt and all of this stuff. He really wasn't thinking about you at that moment. He kept bugging Scott about making sure that all the electronic videotape was correct, and he wanted his family to be part of it. He has a good storytelling legacy after listening to the three of you. You're three very good storytellers, so he did a really good job there as well. Great stories. Thank you for that. It's nice knowing part of Alister that we never ever got to meet over here. It's really nice. I don't think too many people get a chance to be loved on two continents, and it's kind of nice to see this family here. I'm friends with you on Facebook, but actually getting to meet you is a real privilege. I looked at some of the things that I wanted to say about Alister, and I looked through some of the messages that I received from him on Messenger. So I told Dave when I came this morning, I really don't think it's appropriate that I tell any of those. However, seeing who's here, though, the last one I received from Alister was in November, and it was a picture of Mr. Spock riding a rooster, which in itself isn't very funny, but the caption said, Who the hell needs Alf on a shelf when you got Spock on a plank? So that was Alister. We did go camping several times. We don't camp in a tent. And we were in 2 different campgrounds, but we visited back and forth, and we were up visiting Judy and Alister. And hey, what did you pack? You're cooking hot dogs for breakfast? What are you having for lunch? Hot dogs? What are you having for supper? Hot dogs. So we kind of felt sorry for them and invited them up the next morning for breakfast, and I think we had the whole gamut, right? And Alister kind of sitting there quietly eating. And then Judy tells me later, I don't know if you remember this, after the big breakfast, he went back to roast a hot dog. Remember that? Many more stories that I don't think I'd want to tell. I don't know if there's any children listening over there, but you really need to be proud of your dad. He was so proud of you. He was proud of everybody that he met. He was just a gentle giant for sure. Warrior, man, defender, protector. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for sharing that, Bob. After Alister and Judy were hitched in Bob and Scott's backyard, they headed out on their honeymoon. And guess where they went on their honeymoon? Frank's Slide. Yes, his favorite place. Their marriage was sealed after they came face to face with a bear. Something that he grilled you about when you were on your trip and tried to scare you with, and then he's the one that got the bear in his face. That'll teach him. Kara, Judy's daughter, said that for Alister, he was a wonderful man. She had a great respect for him, and he helped her learn responsible gun ownership. Actually taking her to the range and teaching her how to properly care for a firearm and be a firearm holder. Alister was always on hand to help others. Sometimes those helping hands were in the right place at the right time. Alister was at a core function, a charity function downtown, when somebody decided they'd dash away with some money that was sitting in front of a little girl who was selling lemonade. The culprit sped around the corner and away from the parking lot and ran directly into the outstretched waiting arm of Alister. The money and the man went scattering on the pavement, and the little girl who was selling the lemonade called Alister her hero. In later years, Alister began enjoying photography, so a walk through Strathcona Park would yield many photos of deer, owls, and other wildlife, and he was always on the lookout for skunks. Not because he wanted to take pictures of them, because he wanted to avoid them. Alister was a Motherwell Football Club fan, and when he watched them play, of course, he was always decked out in his Motherwell gear. Presently, just so you know, Motherwell Club is in the second phase of the Scottish Premiership, and we can imagine him watching from his box seat up above, cheering them on. Now, just so you know, they lost their first 2 matches, but since the day of his passing, they've won the last 2 games. And they play tomorrow. So you need to cheer for them, because we know somebody else will be. Alister, over the years, wore many uniforms. There was the police and military uniforms. There was also the Motherwell gear, of course. And he also donned his Star Trek gear from time to time when he would hang out with his Trekkies. As was mentioned earlier, Alister never liked to focus on the negative. He was always looking for the positive in every situation. His family says that Alister was honest to a fault, and he never wanted people to know what you've already said, that he was a big softy and he had a big heart. Now, building on what we've shared today, let us now pause to view some visual memories of Alister and those he loved. These photos and a few videos selected by the family are accompanied by artists that Alister enjoyed listening to. Rhythm of My Heart and Downtown Train by Rod Stewart, with the dance and the Garth Brooks in between these songs. And right at the end is a snippet from Monterey Jack by Dr. Hook. But we're going to start off the slideshow with a bang.
Is slipping away. Let me still exist in another place, running on the cover of a helicopter plane. Flames are getting higher in efforts, burning down the bridges of my memory. Love may still be alive somewhere, some way, where they're down and only dear 100 steel towns away. Oh, the rhythm of my heart is beating like a drum, with the words I love you rolling off my tongue. No, never will I roam, for I know my place is home, where the ocean meets the sky. I'll be sailing. Photographs, kerosene, light up my darkness, light it up, light it up, light it up. I can still feel a touch of your thin blue jeans, running down the alley. I got my eyes all over you, baby, oh baby. Oh, the rhythm of my heart is beating like a drum, with the words I love you rolling off my tongue. No, never will I roam, for I know my place is home, where the ocean meets the sky. I'll be sailing. I'll be sailing. I got lightning in my veins, swimming like a hangover slot machine. Love may still exist in another place. I'm just yanking back the handle, no expression on my face. The rhythm of my heart is beating like a drum, with the words I love you rolling off my tongue. Oh, never will I roam, for I know my place is home, where the ocean meets the sky. I'll be sailing. The rhythm of my heart is beating like a drum, with the words I love you rolling off my tongue. No, never will I roam, for I know my place is home, where the ocean meets the sky. I'll be sailing. The rhythm of my heart is beating like a drum, the words I love you rolling off my tongue. Never will I roam, for I know my place is home, where the ocean meets the sky. I'll be sailing.
Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Holding you, I held everything. For a moment, wasn't I the king? But if I'd only known how the king would fall, hey, who's to say? You know I might have changed it all. And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. It's my life, it's better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
Outside another yellow moon has punched a hole in the nighttime mist. I climb through the window and down to the street. I'm shining like a new dime. The downtown trains are full of all them Brooklyn girls. They try so hard to break out of their little worlds. You wave your hand and they scatter like crows. They have nothing that'll ever capture your heart. They're just thorns without the rose. Be careful out there in the dark. Oh, if I was the one you chose to be your only one. Oh, baby, can't you hear me now? Can't you hear me now? Will I see you tonight on the downtown train? Every night is just the same on the downtown train. I know your window and I know it's late. I know your stairs and your doorway are walk down your street and past your gate. I stand by the light of the four-way. You watch them as they fall. Oh, baby, they are having their heart attacks. They stay at the carnival, but they'll never win you back. Will I see you tonight on a downtown train? Every night is just the same. You leave me lonely. Will I see you tonight on a downtown train? All my dreams fall like rain on a downtown train. Will I see you tonight on a downtown train? Every night is just the same. Will I see you tonight on a downtown train? All my dreams fall like rain on a downtown train. On a downtown train. All my dreams fall like rain on a downtown train.
That's really the end.
Oh, poor Grandpa.
Oh. Come on, Leo, go get Grandpa. Kaylee won't squirt you.
Yes, she will.
Go get him. Get him. Jeez. Oh, there.
Oh, no. Leo, squirt Kaylee. Squirt Kaylee. Right.
Everything ends with a water fight. Alister Muirhead will be missed. But he'll never truly be gone if he's remembered in your hearts and in your minds. So think of Alister, talk about him, and fondly remember those times that he touched your heart in some way. Stories about Alister were appreciated, so please share these with each other afterwards or in the days or weeks to come. These memories will help guide you through the grieving process. The family appreciates you spending time with them to celebrate Alister's life, whether you're here in person or on our live stream. You, of course, here are welcome to stay afterwards and join the family in some light refreshments into the room just to my left, to your right. And this will continue to help celebrate the life of Alister Muirhead. And at that time, you might be able to find out why the family was laughing at one particular picture in the slideshow. Bob might share some other stories, but you can definitely share and continue to share Alister's life with each other. Let us now share our final prayers as we say goodbye. Into your hands, O merciful Savior, we commend your servant Alister. By your mercy and through his baptism and profession of faith, we know that he was well known to you and to us as your servant. Acknowledge, O God, we humbly pray, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, and a son of your own redeeming. Receive Alister into the arms of perfect love, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the glorious company of the heavenly saints. We pray this and say, Amen. To honor Alister's heritage, I'd like to leave you with a Celtic blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and the rains fall softly upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. As we now conclude the formal part of our service, let us remember Alister once again and remember what we loved about him most. Let us take a few moments to sit in contemplation as we remember Alister's life, and as you do, please say your own goodbyes and prayers for him. We will share first the hymn, Amazing Grace, by the Scottish Bagpipes, and after this finishes, we will then exit our pews to the anthem of Scotland the Brave by the pipes and drums of the Royal Tank Regiment.